Peace to the ones tracing roots. Side-eye to the ones hanging on to labels they never chose. I'm a Chileona, genealogist, author, and memory keeper. I help people uncover what memory thieves try to bury, the truth of who they are and where they come from. If your ancestors were renamed, reclassified, or erased on paper, I'm here to help you correct the record. My book, Discovering American Genealogy, is available on Amazon. Links in the description box below. And if this content speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss our fire talks. Disclaimer: I do not believe in racial classifications like black, white, or Native American. These are colonial constructs designed to erase and rewrite our true identities. However, I will use terms like black demographic or historically black classified individuals strictly for context, research clarity, and to help you recognize how our people were labeled in government records. This is not a validation of these labels, but a necessary tool for locating documentation and understanding the impact of identity reclassification. Let's stay rooted in ancestral truth, not colonial definitions. Now, since we got that out the way, I want to talk about a video I made encouraging individuals from the historically black classified demographic to research their genealogy and uncover their indigenous ancestral nations using paper trails. What followed in the comment section was a wave of pushback, of course, especially from those who call themselves aboriginals or originals, claiming we already know who we are. I come from this nation. I come from that nation. Okay, cool. But if that's true, why are you still responding to being called black? And before we get even deeper into this, let me address something that needs to be said up front. Every time I tell self-identified Black Americans to research their genealogy and connect with their indigenous ancestral nations, I get hit with a wave of backlash. Not from the people who are genuinely trying to learn, but from the ones who think they know everything because they've memorized a few talking points off TikTok. These are the same people who constantly label me as black, trying to keep me boxed in under a colonial identity I've long rejected. But the second I encourage people to go beyond slogans like black people are indigenous to everywhere and start naming actual nations, actual relatives, actual documentation, suddenly I'm labeled as the confused person. Now I'm being told I'm Mongolian. Now I'm being told I need to worry about deportation. Funny how I'm black to them when they need to validate their Pan-African fantasy. But the moment I bring up real genealogy, now I'm a foreigner, a threat, a $5 Indian in disguise. No, I've seen the comments. I've seen the projections. Let me be clear. I'm not condescending to people who are genuinely curious or still unlearning. I have grace for folks doing the work. My tone, however, shifts when people try to gaslight me about my own identity, rewrite my family history, or call me everything but indigenous just because I won't let them stay lazy with their research. If your first reaction to someone saying, go look up your great-grandmother, is to accuse them of self-hate or foreign ancestry, then you're not ready for this conversation. And maybe you're not even ready for this page. This space is for individuals actively reclaiming their indigenous identities and decolonizing their minds. If that's not your journey, this platform isn't for you. And it is true. Many misclassified indigenous people don't fully understand how deep identity erasure runs. That's why I'm pivoting my content to center indigenous descendants who were reclassified by the state and who take genealogy seriously. We have to address the elephant in the room. Groups like the Hebrew Israelite community and other religious factions often rely heavily on biblical scriptures, but can't name a single ancestral nation they descend from. Quoting Deuteronomy isn't a substitute for citing freedmen rolls, census documents, or even naming a great-grandparent born before 1900. Then there's the Pan-Africanist crowd and those in the We're All Aboriginal echo chamber. Some of them do carry indigenous lineage, but they refuse to take responsibility for it. They don't study it, document it, or even acknowledge it in their personal identities. That lack of accountability is one of the reasons our community stays fractured. Everybody wants to claim something, but very few want to do the work. That's why on my channel, we post receipts, we cite, we document, we correct. Genealogy is layered, political, and deeply historical. Too many people reduce it to vague slogans like all Black Americans are American Indians, which not only mislead, but also invites infiltration. Foreigners can cosplay our identity when our messaging lacks specificity. I've had folks jump into my comments lost, saying, "What are you talking about?" Yet those same individuals will say, "I'm Aboriginal," or "I'm Black." Baby, if you can't trace your family beyond 1900 or even explain identity alchemy, maybe you're not of this lineage. And that's fine. But don't come here rewriting narratives because you haven't even read anything remotely of what we talk about on my channel. People want to cling to labels like Black, then get mad when those labels are exposed as memory theft. You say you don't want to be called Black, but when I leave that label out, now people want to say that Black people were everywhere and that the American Indians are Black. No. American Indians were reclassified as Black, which is paper genocide, or what I like to call ID alchemy. If you truly believe identity alchemy took place, then you would not embrace such verbiage when it comes to racial categories that erased your family's legacy. Reclassification wasn't just a label change. It was a cultural reset. I used to say Black Americans are American Indians. I included that statement in my content, but I now see how problematic that is. Many individuals still identify with that label and refuse to let it go. Getting them to engage in real genealogy research is like pulling teeth from a grizzly bear. They think dropping that label means losing identity, not realizing it was stolen in the first place and replaced with something false. Some of my subscribers have told me that they have enough documentation to form their own nations, but they can't do it because their families are still clinging to labels like Black or African American. A client of mine, let's call him DC, experienced this firsthand. Despite having all the records, his relatives refused to move forward because they don't want to give up the false identity. That's the kind of generational blockage we're up against. Also, I get why some people call themselves Black in public or even on the internet to avoid confrontation, bullying, or being harassed. And I'm not gonna lie, I used to do it too. When you're the only person in the group who knows their ancestry, it can feel isolating. But eventually, you have to start having these uncomfortable conversations. When someone refers to you as Black, speak up. You can be polite but firm. You can say, that's not how I identify. I've done my genealogy and I descend from American Indian nations. You don't have to be hostile, just grounded. If they push, shut the conversation down. Protect your peace. You don't owe your identity to anyone else's comfort. Now let's pivot back to why genealogy research matters. I hear people say, I don't need documents to tell me who I am. And I understand the emotion behind that, but in the age of misinformation and digital decay, documentation matters. Too many narratives have been pushed about people from the Black demographic. Narratives that get accepted without question. People read something in a school book and assume it's gospel, not realizing their own family documents tell a completely different story. And yes, records can be altered, but when your ancestor went from being labeled Indian to Negro in 2 decades, that's not just an error, that's identity alchemy. Genealogy is about more than proving descent. It's about exposing misinformation and confronting the lies passed down through generations. People are going to keep saying we're lying until they see the receipts. That's why so many from the Black demographic run to DNA ancestry tests. They think these tests is the only valid proof of ancestry. But they don't tell the full story. Your family records do. And if you continue to ignore that truth, you're choosing ignorance in the age of information. He conveniently forgot that the term Black was weaponized by memory thieves as a dumping ground. They used labels like Black, colored, Negro to erase, mix, and bury the identities of people who are of American Indian descent, African descent, and even South Asians under these generic labels. And yet, anytime someone of darker hue reclaims their indigenous roots, here comes the attacks, the eye rolls, and the sarcasm. Until a Mexican white person or some anti-Black troll targets them. Suddenly it's, we were here before Columbus. My grandma said we got Indian in us. And we're the real ones. We're the real American Indians, but where was all that memory when Bow Wow spoke his truth? I used to identify as pro-black before I even did my own genealogy research. So I know and understand the judgment people have towards American Indians who don't fit the stereotypical look that people associate with indigenous phenotypes. So we're not going to sit here and pretend like we don't know when people are being judgy or passive aggressive or even trying to bully people who talk about having American Indian ancestry, because I've seen it firsthand. I actually find it highly disgusting that people from the Black American demographic want to claim Aboriginal American identity when it benefits them. So it didn't matter when your elder told you that you were American Indian. It didn't matter when you came across paper documentation stating that as well. It didn't matter that you practiced the culture of your indigenous nations. You only wanted to talk about being indigenous when the envelopians told you to go back to Africa. When the Mexicans who are getting rounded up by ICE telling you to go outside and protest for them because they are the real Native Americans and that you need to practice solidarity with them. So it was okay to harass and belittle people that you share kinship and lineage with. But when your lineage is threatened and when your identity is being scrutinized, now you want to identify with us. Now you see us. Now you want to weaponize your ancestry when memory thieves are trying to take the memory of your ancestors away from you. I find that highly convenient. I remember when I first came into the Aboriginal American community. I remember seeing pro-blacks and pan-Africanists in the comment section basically egging on the $5 Indians to call us the N-words, to try and put us in our place. And now these very same people want to repeat racial slogans and say, oh, black people are everywhere. Black people were in America before Columbus too. Where was that? Where was that talk circa 2015, 2016 to present? As a matter of fact, what was that talk from when the I'm Black and I'm Proud movement to now? Because before the I'm Black and I'm Proud movement, our elders and ancestors already knew that they came from Turtle Island. And it wasn't until foreign influence got into their descendants' ear and told them that they don't come from here. They come from Africa. Fast forward to today, when these foreigners are trying to threaten your sovereignty and the history of your family, now y'all want to borrow the same talking points of Aboriginal Americans. The same talking points you mocked. Now you're repackaging them like you always knew, when deep down you despised us for even speaking about these type of topics like genealogy, reclaiming your indigenous identity, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, just because you don't understand the importance of reclaiming your indigenous ancestry doesn't mean I don't. That's why I no longer trust those who still respond to the label black. If you truly understood identity erasure, you wouldn't answer to it either. You'll be focused on reclaiming what was stolen, your true name, your true nation, and your true identity.